The NBA season has been flooded with incredible comeback stories so far, such as Dante Exum. When he was selected with the 5th overall pick in the 2014 draft, the expectations and excitement was high. But sadly, that didn't last all that long. No one expected him to come in and have a really polished game immediately, but after a rookie season that saw him average less than 5 points with atrocious efficiency, it was getting harder to imagine him ever putting it together, especially after his development was put on a major pause. He would suffer a knee injury that caused him to miss the entire 2016 season. When he returned, things were only marginally better, 6 points, shooting 43% from the field. Throughout the following season, he would once again miss a lot of time with injury, but he did show some improvement in his few appearances. 8 points and 3 assists, now shooting 48% from the field. Slowly, some of the excitement regarding his future was creeping back up. He had already been establishing himself as a reliable perimeter defender, and now he was making jumps offensively. Very, very small jumps, but nonetheless jumps. This gave Utah enough confidence to sign him to a 3-year, $33 million extension. One that quickly looked like a mistake. By the 2020 season, he was barely seen the court with Utah, so only a couple months into the season, he'd be traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he would close out the year averaging 5 points. A year later, he was now out of Cleveland's rotation, and would be traded once again, this time to the Houston Rockets. There he would never make a regular season appearance before being waived. At that point, it looked like Dante Exum's NBA career was over. The opportunities had run out. He was a solid defender, but that was about it. Even when he had some of those stretches where it looked like he was starting to put together things offensively, the progress was consistently halted by various injuries. And so just like that, in the eyes of many, especially the American audience, Dante Exum vanished. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pumped for the big game on Sunday, and you already know I'm going to be sweating out an entry on today's sponsor, PrizePicks. It's a sports pick'em platform where you just pick more or less on stats for now up to 100 times your entry. What really separates PrizePicks for me is that they just always have new stuff coming out. A few weeks ago, they added Demon and Goblin Squares for tons of different payouts. They now have those in the NBA. Then if you're in Alabama, Tennessee, Wyoming, or West Virginia, they've got a brand new mode, Pick'em Arena. In the arena, you make your usual entry with 2, 3, or 4 squares, but then you're placed in a group with other members with the same number of picks and entry amount. To win, you either finish tied with the highest score in the group and split the payout, or get all the picks right for the usual payout. I'm really excited to see that mode come to my state. But if you guys want to check out PrizePicks, if you go to the link in the description and use my code JimmerRange when you sign up, they're going to match your first deposit up to $100. Then after you do that, they've got a free square going on for Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. He only needs a single passing yard. Here's the entry I'm going with, hoping for a big passing game. Thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring. He would decide to take his talents to Europe, where he signed with one, if not the biggest clubs outside the US, FC Barcelona and the Liga ACB. There he immediately looked comfortable in the European game. He averaged an efficient 7 points in the Spanish League, an efficient 9 points in the Euro League. Then after one season, he signed with a Serbian club in the ABA League, where he really started to get things going. He averaged 11 and 4 as a 47% three-point shooter in their ABA games. He upped that to over 13 a night during their Euro League games. Now those numbers don't really jump out by NBA standards, but the European game and the statistical standards there are much different. To get an idea, per 36, he was averaging 26 and 5 on 50, 40, 90. He was one of the top players in the ABA. He made their equivalent of All-NBA first team and managed to close out the year holding up the championship trophy. This whole situation was wild. This wasn't a case of Exum reinforcing the value he can bring to a team. This was a completely different player. It almost didn't make any sense. Over the 7 years he had spent in the NBA, he didn't show even the slightest improvement as a shooter. He had shot 30% across his entire career. In his brief appearances during his final season, he was shooting 38% from the field, 18% from 3, and 50% from the line. Now only 2 years later, he's leading a team to a championship as a 50-40-90 player. Not only that, he managed to shoot 50-40-90 across the 91 international games he played in the 2 years since leaving the NBA. After putting up a season like that, still only 27 years old, it wasn't surprising that the NBA started calling again, and just weeks after hoisting up the championship trophy, he was back. He reached an agreement with the Dallas Mavericks on a 2-year deal at the vet minimum. The second year of that contract is non-guaranteed, so effectively it's a team option. Clearly based on that, it's not like there was a bidding war for his services. Most just looked at it as an intriguing low-floor, okay upside signing heading into the year. Very few projected even a somewhat significant role for him this season. If they did, they were likely very confident we weren't being deceived by this newfound shooting ability. Without the ability to space the floor, minutes just wouldn't be there, and well, to begin the season, there weren't many for him. Through his first 6 games, he played just 6 minutes a night, averaging 2 points, and went just 1 for 3 beyond the arc. It was a great comeback story, just not with the ending we all hoped. So that's the video, guys. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Oh wait, his role actually starts to tick up after that. Over the next 10 games, he averages 14 minutes and 7 points. But then once again, he's struggling beyond the arc. He makes just 21% or 3 of his 14 attempts. I guess the doubters were right. Nothing really changed. Exum really just belonged in the EuroLeague. So that's really the end of the video, guys. Smash the like button. Catch you guys soon. Okay, we're done with that. Sorry. On December 8th, the Mavericks are starting off a quick road trip against the Portland Trail Blazers. Things begin relatively unnotable. That is until midway through the second quarter when Kyrie Irving goes down with a foot injury. Almost immediately, he's ruled out for the rest of the game. The Mavericks needed someone to step up alongside Luka and ultimately looked at Dante Exum. He finished the night with 23 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds. In the final 3 quarters, he went 9 for 12 from the field and 2 for 2 beyond the arc. Kyrie Irving's now set to miss some time. This level of opportunity isn't going to be going anywhere. In the following game, he drops 16, 6, and 4. Then the next game, he does this. It's actually hard to fathom that this is the same player from a couple years ago. Over the 12 games after Kyrie went down with injury, Exum averaged 16, 4, and 4, shooting, and hear this, 64% from the field, 58% from 3, and 84% from the line. Now, unfortunately, this run would be put on hold. He suffered a heel injury that caused him to only play in just 3 of their games since the start of the new year. Hopefully he's back out there soon, and this is only the beginning of one of the most impressive NBA comebacks we've seen in quite a while. Now, while he never came close to the lows in the league that Exum did, another really impressive comeback in the making right now is former 8th overall pick, Sexton. Sexton's career has been a pretty polar one so far. As a rookie in 2019, he had put up some decent numbers on paper. 17 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 40% from 3. But while the scoring was strong, there was also some glaring issues. He wasn't much of a facilitator, also despite him commonly being portrayed as this tenacious, in-your-face defender that was the quote-unquote young bull. He really struggled defensively to begin his career. Take a look at this. One of the more cited advanced metrics over the last few years has been 538's Raptor wins above replacement. It's pretty similar to net rating, but a little less influenced by the rest of the team. It's been tracked from 2013 to 2023, 10 entire seasons. And of the 5,226 player seasons tracked, the worst season, at least according to Raptor War, belongs to Sexton at negative 7.4. Then in his second season, he goes up to 21 points, 3 assists, 3 boards, shooting with 47-38 splits. This is when his value in the league really started to become a heated debate. On paper, the offense appeared to be nothing short of incredible for his age. And while yes, the scoring was, there were legitimate questions about the actual value of his production given the detriments and positional limitations he had. In that season, going back to War, he recorded the second lowest defensive score recorded at the point guard position. Now in defense of Sexton, many were pointing out the limitations of these metrics and suggesting that there's actually very little to take away on that end playing alongside guys like Kevin Love, Darius Garland, and Kevin Porter Jr. A valid defense. But come his third season, despite him ramping up his scoring to 24 points a night, you slowly started to see more people turn on Sexton. By now there was no one denying his talent as a scorer, but those other concerns were becoming more and more prominent. In 2019, the team had drafted Darius Garland with their top pick, another undersized point guard who in this same season had also taken a big jump. He went to 17 points as a 40% three-point shooter, while also bringing a facilitating skill set Sexton wasn't. All signs were pointing to him being their point guard of the future, but he was also a guy bringing very little defense. So we started to see questions quickly rising about the viability of this backcourt going forward. Questions that only grew to open the 2022 season, where through 11 games, Sexton was now averaging only 16 points on 54-24 splits, before unfortunately suffering a torn meniscus, knocking him out for the rest of the year. This obviously put Sexton in a tough spot. There were now serious health concerns added on to those concerns that already existed about his fit with the team. Then to make things even more complicated, the Cavaliers went on to put together a great season. They doubled their win total from the year prior. So then going into last season, they wanted to expand on that, and instead of continuing to see what this group could do with Sexton back, the Cavs decided to get aggressive and made a blockbuster move for all-star guard Donovan Mitchell. In the process, Colin Sexton was sent to the Jazz. Going into last season, his 5th season in the league, first season with Utah, coming off injury, the excitement surrounding him was really cooling down, and that didn't really change throughout the year. He played just 48 games where he was, well, a 6th man. He averaged 14 points on 51-39 splits. These were solid numbers, but far from the 24 points a night he was averaging not long ago, and unfortunately, this seemed to be the player we would see going forward, an efficient shot creator coming off the bench. That was about it. But then when this current season tipped off, it was looking like he might not even bring much value in that role, that now he just might be one of the worst contracts in the entire league. Over the first 20 games, he was getting 21 minutes off the bench, averaging only 12 points on 44-32 splits. Not ideal. But then, things get interesting. Jordan Clarkson, who had been starting nightly, was set to miss some time with injury. This made way for a much bigger opportunity for Sexton. In fact, he'd be inserted into the starting lineup in the very next game, a December 12th matchup against the Knicks. He would end up dropping 26, 7, and 4, shooting over 50% from the field, and the success didn't slow down. 27, 28, 27 in his next 3 games. Across the 6 that Clarkson ended up missing, he would average 25 points and 5 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 40% from 3. The Jazz had also gone 4-2. They were starting to get on a roll, so even when Clarkson returned, Sexton didn't leave the starting lineup, and the Jazz really started to catch fire. Over Sexton's first 19 starts, the Jazz had a record of 15-4, and he was averaging 22 points and 5 assists on 52-42 splits. Now, to put all that team success on Sexton would be ridiculous. Laurie started to catch fire, John Collins was playing better, Chris Dunn was stepping up, but this was still clearly massive for his outlook going forward. He was now making a massive impact for a team that was nothing short of dominant for a quarter of the season. Now, over the last couple weeks, things have cooled down quite a bit for Utah, but for Sexton, they really haven't. Over their last 9 games since that dominant stretch, he's been averaging 21 points and 7 assists. What's important to realize is that during this stretch, he isn't just returning to the scoring we saw in Cleveland, but he's showing a playmaking ability we just haven't seen from him before. If he's able to keep this up, he's going to be a huge part of Utah's future, which just 30 games ago was getting really tough to envision. 30 games ago, very few were also expecting to see former Warriors top selection Jonathan Kuminga playing close to the level he is right now. There's never been any questions about his physical profile, his upside, his talent. At one point, he was the #1 high school recruit in the country. But since then, things haven't been very smooth sailing. After some rough efficiency during his lone G League season, he would fall to the Warriors at 7 during the 2021 draft. But then as a rookie, the excitement really started to pick up again. He was only averaging 9 points, but there were more than enough displays of jaw-dropping athleticism to get the rest of the league nervous about his future with this Warriors team, as at the time, they didn't need him at all. They went on to win the title in his rookie season. But then last year, the situation changed quite a bit. They didn't look like the reigning champs. They didn't have Wiggins for around half the season, Jordan Poole was doing Jordan Poole things, and they had lost guys like Otto Porter in free agency. Because of all that, Kuminga's role shot up. He was getting 21 minutes a night. He was still only averaging around 10 points, but he had become a big part of the rotation for pretty much the entire regular season. Heading into the playoffs, there was no signs of that changing. But seemingly overnight, it did. And not just a slight role change, his role was pretty much gone. Through their 13 playoff games, he would play in just 10 for an average of 6 minutes. Some of the causes were clear. Wiggins was back, the fit with Kuminga and Draymond together was never great. The rotation always shrinks in the playoffs, and while Kuminga at the point of attack had showed a ton of defensive talent, his ability off the ball drew concerns going into the playoffs where offenses are focusing on what can be exploited. But having his role reduced to irrelevance, that was surprising, and ultimately didn't solve any of their problems. They were bounced out in the second round, and were now one of the hardest teams to project going forward. Coming into this season, Vegas was giving him one of the highest win totals, but there were just so many questions yet to be answered. They had made a huge move, swapping out Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. What was he going to bring at 38 years old? What were they going to get from Wiggins, who after returning from an absence for personal reasons last year, was far from the player that played such a pivotal role in their most recent title run? And then the biggest question, what were the Warriors going to get from this young core? Not even 2 years ago, so much excitement surrounded it. They had the second overall pick James Wiseman, 2 lottery selections with Moody and Kuminga, and then they had the breakout of Jordan Poole. Now flash forward to tip-off of the 2024 season, Wiseman was gone, Poole was gone, Moody's role had been inconsistent, and Jonathan Kuminga just spent their entire playoff run warming the bench. If the Warriors' championship hopes were gonna get reinvigorated this year, they were gonna need a lot more from their youth. Well, that was assuming a few things. That was assuming that Draymond didn't look at the league as a WWE Royal Rumble and got suspended, that Klay didn't have the worst season since his rookie year, that Andrew Wiggins didn't continue this wild fall-off. He's a season removed from being an all-star starter, yet is now averaging 12 points as a 31% three-point shooter. When all of that is happening to the core of the team, it doesn't matter what the young core is doing. Their championship hopes are pretty much dead. Even their playoff hopes are on its last leg. According to the Vegas odds, they currently sit with a less than 19% chance to make the postseason. It's been a disaster. The reign of this core as we know it seems to be reaching its end. But while that might be the case, at least there has been some positives to come out of this drama-filled season. A lot of the things we expected from this roster didn't happen. A lot of the things the team hoped for from this roster did. Their rookies have really impressed. Second-round pick Trace Jackson Davis, and most notably, their first-round pick Brandon Podziemski. But then the guy that appeared to be their X-factor entering the season, Jonathan Kuminga, he's starting to catch fire. For the first 20 or so games, things were not looking great. He averaged 11 points, shooting with just 45-25 splits. But then Draymond did this.
Oh man.
Draymond's suspended indefinitely, and now the Warriors desperately need Kuminga to step up. And just like Dante Exum, just like Sexton, he did that. In the 18 games without Draymond, he averaged 16 points and 5 rebounds on good splits. Solid, but Draymond's return a couple weeks ago is where things actually got interesting. Kuminga's role didn't go anywhere. In fact, it's actually gotten bigger. He's averaging 35 minutes since Green's return, and he's dominating. Over the Warriors' last 9 games, he's putting up 25 points and 6 rebounds a night, shooting with 62-54 splits. He dropped 25 against Atlanta without missing a single shot. He dropped 24 points going 9 for 12 against Chicago, 29 going 11 for 15 against Memphis. Now during this 9-game stretch, the Warriors do only have a record of 4-5, but that doesn't really tell the full story. 3 of those losses are by a combined 9 points. A couple more things swing their way and that record looks a lot different. They've had the 8th highest net rating in this stretch, as well as the 4th highest offensive rating. Since Draymond's returned, the lineup of Curry, Wiggins, Draymond, Podziemski, and Kuminga has been the 2nd best net rated lineup in the entire league and the number 1 offensive rated lineup in the entire league. It's definitely been a roller coaster of a season for this team. It's also unlikely that roller coaster is over just yet, but over the last couple weeks, Kuminga is definitely making things a lot more interesting, and after what he went through in the playoffs, it's impossible not to root for his success to continue.